Hi. All right, we're recording. It's Tina and Heather back for our next energy psychology / whatever the muscle testing tells us we need to do, right?
Yes.
Last time we did an I Ching reading, which is something that I'm actually doing more of for myself and for others. So it was, of course, serendipitous that it would come up for Heather. Oh yeah. Okay, so let me get my thoughts together. Okay, so last time we did the I Ching reading, and the our guidance, our muscle testing. Where's I lost the paper now. Pointed us for you to do. So we, if you watch the last session, you can kind of hear about what all came up for you in that I Ching reading, and the assignment for you to work on between times was doing some balances, creating some statements based on that information that you got from the I Ching, and then also on forgiveness. So this is a common, so usually when people first start with me, I won't ask you to make your own statements up, unless it's, there's it would be a special circumstance, I would say. When people first start to work with me, I might give you some statements to do for homework that are like already written out and already muscle tested and already figured out. But since Heather's been doing this a while, usually what happens is people, the muscle testing points us toward make up your own statements, right? Start to explore that and, doing the practice a little more on your own each day or 3 times a week or whatever it is you decide, or the muscle testing says you need to work on. So today we're going to be kind of illustrating for people like how it can go, when the muscle testing says, all right, this is how you need to proceed. It doesn't always go exactly like you think it will. And so basically we've just kind of already talked about it. So I just want to really quickly give everybody the brief synopsis. So Heather she showed up for her practice. Yes. High five, and looked at the information and kind of divided the things she needed to look at and make statements up about into 3 different categories. And then she kind of came up with some statements for each of those categories, but it wasn't feeling, like it was quite right. You had questions about the statements. You wanted to bounce them off, somebody else. And so then I asked about muscle testing and you're like, yeah, well, I don't know, and so we talked about practicing muscle testing is a really, even if you're not sure, like just doing it during your practices. So that's one thing that's like kind of a homework assignment for you is just, even if you're not sure about your muscle testing, just keep practicing with it and see what happens. So that's number 1. So if you come up with some statements, if you get that far where you're like, okay, well, I've got some statements, but I'm not really sure, and, I don't have anybody I can ask right now, but I'm here to do my practice. So like, let's just balance one, right?
Yeah.
So that would be like my first advice for anybody who kind of gets that far where they're like, okay, I made up some statements, but I'm really unsure if it's, so right. I think the first thing to remember is you're not going to do any damage, right? As long as you're balancing a statement that is, positively stated and is about something that's supportive of your highest and best good, you're not going to do any damage, right? So the worst that can happen is that nothing will happen, but it's never nothing that happens, because if you show up for your practice and even just sit down and write out some statements, you get some insights, you get some, energetic movement. So when you get stuck at that point that you're not sure and you must, so first thing is practice muscle testing. Just see what the muscle testing says. And if that's still confusing, it's okay. You can still balance one of those statements, right? Because if you got it for homework, spirit is saying, your higher self is saying, you can do this.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so what happens, in my experience, when I, was in this phase of like not being sure if I can make up my own statements and should I balance this now, or, was that when I just went ahead and balanced something, then it opened the door for more information and more, intuition of like, oh, I should do it this way, or I should say it this way, and when you're doing the statement, when you're doing the balance, I should say, the limit clearing process, sometimes the statement becomes more clear.
Yeah.
So just going through the motions, the physical motions of doing the limit clearing process can help you refine your statement. And by the end of the balance, usually you're pretty clear and you get some movement. Now, that's not always what happens. Sometimes you're still like, I don't know if that did anything.
But I think with these, I was close enough. I probably could have done that.
Actually. Probably with what I heard, some of your statements were. But so I want to say to everybody out there that's like in that phase, or even if you have like 5 statements that you kind of got at Sacred Circle, that you came up with at Sacred Circle, or somebody said out loud at Sacred Circle, that you have statements and they're good statements and you feel like they're emotionally powerful, and but you're feeling paralyzed about, I don't know what order and I don't want to mess anything up. Like, really, you're not going to mess anything up.
Right.
Just balance one of them and that will give you clarity on the next step.
Right.
All right. So that's the first thing I was going to say about all that. Heather was thinking when, as you had your notes, that we would go over this and I would muscle test some stuff for you and we'd get clarity on the statements and then you could do those later. I'm saying that for everybody out there. Talking about you in the third person is weird. But I'm feeling like, and let's muscle test and see, I'm feeling like what really needs to happen is you can take what you've done here, your notes, and just do what I just said, and let's see what happens. And
I'm feeling the same thing.
Yeah. So I don't think I need to help you, because these statements, let's just say a few out loud.
Yeah.
Say a few out loud for people.
Actually, I just actually changed one too to like, cool. So I think that we're good with. So let me look at these again, and I'm going to narrow it down, because I think the first one, we've got a few that are kind of very similar. So I think I'm going to do, I remain centered and focused while I prepare and take action. And then, actually, I am going to do both. I take time to prepare before major shifts, and I take time to rebuild after each shift. I don't know if I want to say rebuild or settle or what. That might change, but
And remember, we had those other words: recuperate, repair, like allowing the old to fertilize the new was from that thing. That was part of that too. So that can be another statement, totally. Being okay with that decay process, because we know it's fertilizing the new. That's an entirely. That's a whole another can of worms, right? Of like how we have beliefs that get in the way of natural cycles of life, right? Such as that decay process. All right, cool. So that was, and then I forgive myself and others.
And I just put for all perceived mistakes. I don't have to put past, present, and future. That was seeming too wordy, and it is. I can just say for all perceived mistakes.
Cool.
And then the last one is, I easily embody the power of feminine persuasion.
Cool.
So I don't, whatever space I was in my head when I wrote those, it was just not even making sense. And then I went back and read it later, and I was like, wait a minute, it was just not time, I guess. Like, I don't know, for whatever reason, it was just not.
It could be that it just wasn't time. We'll never know that, right?
It just wasn't.
I do want to encourage people, like, if you're feeling in that uncertain space, maybe it does mean that you put it away today, but come back to it tomorrow.
Yeah.
Don't just let it sit a week because you're just like, I just can't come up with the right statement, because every time we show up, right. And this because you're very good at showing up for your practice, for the most part, right? Like you're on top of it. And so then sometimes it even becomes, a difficult, like we were talking about resistance. And when we talk about resistance to doing this work or to making changes or anything like that, like, sometimes I think even that word is not a helpful word, because we have forms of resistance that don't actually feel like resistance in the traditional way. And so, there are so many ways that our well, different aspects of ourselves. It can be in our subconscious, but there's lots of different ways we can describe those aspects of ourselves. But the bottom line is they sabotage, right? And they put doubts. They see the doubt and let the doubt win out rather than the action that is just like, it's okay to step forward, in a little bit of doubt, because you've had all these other, you got does homework in your session, and you already have all this information from the I Ching that's like, this is what you need right now, so the any doubts about anything, whether it's doubts about the wording, or doubts about how long it is, or doubts about if it's safe for you to balance it at this time, maybe it brings up a lot of scary emotion for you, and so then it doesn't feel safe to balance it, because you feel like, oh my gosh, I don't want to open up that can of worms, or whatever. There's so many things that will stop us from doing our limit clearing processes, and using the word resistance, I think, is not always exactly accurate, because sometimes it's a sabotage, kind of
clumsy human words. We can't put words to it.
Right. And it's about staying in the old ruts. It's about staying in the old patterns, that we're trying to break free of. And
the old paradigm doesn't want to die. It doesn't want to let go to the new, give way to the new paradigm. And that's for everything that you go
through. Everything you look at is happening right now. Yeah. So yay. So thank you for sharing that experience and, doing this out loud.
And it's so funny that, like, as we're talking about it, I'm like, oh yeah. Okay. Yeah. We don't need to, those were actually good. I don't know what was.
And I mean, sometimes it is divine timing, but when you show up every day, then the divine, the whatever's ready to come through can come through. And
one of those statements felt pretty good. I can't remember which one it was now, but one of those statements when I wrote it felt pretty good. So if I probably would have just balanced that one, even like that day or the next day, I probably
then the other ones might have been more. Yeah, that's true. Yeah. Go with the one that you're, it's like multiple choice test, right? Just do the best you can and then see what happens next. Like it's it's nothing to be scared of, and I don't think you're scared of it. I'm just saying that for everyone that, like, that you're going to do it wrong.
Yeah, because really it's all about, there is no right or wrong.
Right. If you're following, there's guidelines, and if you're within those guidelines, you're not going to do any damage.
Well, and if if you're the one writing it and it's hitting at those emotions, it's going to get to what it needs to.
Oh yeah.
So you're feeling into that as you're writing it, and you're hitting on those emotions as you're writing it, and you're thinking about, like, the depth of where that is, and it may not feel quite right, but you've hit on those emotions. So it's going to do something. So.
Yes, absolutely. And that was one thing you were saying earlier about, like, you were feeling like the emotions weren't as strong. You weren't able to bring them up as much to, like, kind of guide you through the process. And the thing that I wanted to say for everybody was that, sometimes that's okay. And sometimes it'll be like that. And so that's one of the times that you can just say, I'm just going to balance this, I'm just going to take the words straight out of that I Ching reading, or I'm just going to take the words straight out of that angel number, or whatever the thing is that, is there, has been given to you, that has gotten your attention to balance. Then it will a lot of times bring up more of the emotions to then. Yeah. So sometimes it's like, we feel like it has to go in a certain order, because you're used to maybe doing it that way, because you do use your emotions a lot to kind of guide you through this work. And, maybe somebody else doesn't. And so they would have a hard time with the other way, but so sometimes, so for you, if that emotion isn't as strong, just know I'm going to do this. And we talked about even sometimes the right statement to balance is, I know the next statement that I need to balance.
Right.
And when you're
and with these ones, I think that actually when I had the stronger emotions, it made it a little bit more confusing. And then I went back and I was like, I'm not even really sure about these. But then actually now, like, because as you move away from it, things keep processing. You already you need to do it. So it's happening but the subconscious part is, so that little subconscious part is still there. So I was like, I know I need to do these. But for some reason, it wasn't until I was discussing it out loud that I was like, oh, yeah. But it actually helped without, the emotions are actually not there. anymore. Like they don't feel like super strong or powerful like they did when we first came up with them, because I have moved through and things have been shifting a bit in my understanding anyways, but they're still there. They still need to be balanced. And now it's making sense. Like, oh yeah, no, that's actually a pretty good statement. I think it's good. It's okay
Perfect. Now. Okay, good. So you'll just keep going with that.
Yeah.
And then we'll move on to, it sounds like we talked a little bit before we hit record. And it sounds like one of the things that we might work on today is the whole issue of trust in relationships. And that's a huge topic, because there's so many different kinds of relationships that we have, right? And I think that, in the conversation, we got to it through like, a romantic partnership, kind of finding your perfect mate, vibrational match and all of that. But I think that this can apply to anybody's, issues on trust with any kind of relationship. And I think for you, it's going to be a blanket, it comes up in the romantic relationship a lot of times because we also need to look at it in other areas. And just for those watching along, when you do this work, sometimes the answer is no, we just need to focus on this kind of trust in this kind of relationship. Sometimes, that's the right answer. Sometimes, we do this stuff and it's like, oh no, it comes up in the micro and then it's like, oh, we need to apply this in all of the areas of life. Which is,
I think for me, I think I pretty easily apply it in most relationships because I don't get as emotionally invested in them. I think I struggle with it more in romantic relationships because those are the ones that I tended to lose my self-worth in and lose my boundaries in and question my intuition. And, with other people, I've always been very straightforward and very like, no, that doesn't sound right. Because you're not as deeply emotionally invested usually in the same ways. And so I haven't really ever seen or experienced a lot of issues with I've always been the blunt person that was like, huh? No, that doesn't feel right now. But yeah, I questioned it in romantic relationships. And so I'm getting to a point now where I'm trusting myself a lot more, but there's definitely another layer that we've unearthed that we need to come back around. And
right. And so, and what we've already talked about, but we'll say now for the recording is that, trusting what it really boils down to in relationship is not that can I trust you and you and you and you and you, but can I trust myself enough to navigate our relationship and have the healthy boundaries I need to have and enforce those healthy boundaries that I need to have. Right. And, am I going to be able to open up emotionally, to this person? Am I going to be able, and if you're talking about you want to find a life partner, you got to be able to open up physically. You got to be able to open up spiritually. You got to have that balanced relationship. So, but it's not about, do I trust you to open up? Yeah. It's that, do I trust myself enough, to navigate that in a way that's going to support me and honor you, right? Yeah. That's always something.
And honor your experience and what you're working through, because sometimes those people they don't even realize what they're doing. They're lying, like we were saying before, they're lying to themselves because they just don't know. So they just haven't found that truth or that authenticity yet. So are we going to open to hold that space for them to have that experience and go through that process with them, or allow them that space to go through that process?
Right. And are we even willing to do that? With some people, we will be willing to do that. And then with some people, that's not something that we're going to, feel called to go there with them, but yeah, there is, so in every different kind of relationship, there is a process, right, of, can I trust you? And a lot of people just operate in the realm of, I can't trust anyone. And I
can't trust you until you prove to me that I should be able to trust you.
Right. Or, but what I'm thinking of is the people out there who they have been hurt and wounded and traumatized so much that they don't trust anyone. They might trust their spouse, sort of, but they really operate from a space, like I'm thinking of, in certain situations in like homeschool co-op or, like just out there in the world, right? Where like people you see like they're not willing to open up in any level, to have the exchange of the relationship that, because they can't trust anyone, and they, and
yeah, that whole you can only trust yourself thing. Yeah.
And so, I mean, and the
but
good
then they don't really even trust themselves.
People, I know, right? The good news, and that's the thing, is they don't trust themselves. That's why they don't trust anybody else, right? Because and it could be from childhood, because they had a trauma where they made a mistake and then something horrible happened. Like, who knows? Or things that weren't their fault at all happened, right? That's
right.
They just found themselves in these situations, right? So the good news for those people who, can't trust anyone is that you don't have to navigate, can I trust you? Can I trust you? You don't, that's too much, right? It's all you have to do is learn how to trust yourself. And when you do that, the relationships, you become clear on, oh, can I trust you? It's your bullshit meter, right? We all have this barometer inside ourselves, and we are attuned to it to varying degrees, right? We learn it throughout our lives, how to, and we can tell when different people can, tell when people are lying to them to varying degrees. But it is a vibrational thing, right? You can, and sometimes someone will be telling you their truth, that like that they really whatever, but you can see underneath it, really what the issue is, and so you can feel, so it's not that they're lying, it's just you feel the discord, the disconnect between, so to honing that, that bullshit detector is, so that's what we need for relationships, right? That's what we need just to navigate the world these days, right? The information is too overwhelming. There is too much information to vet in the old way. We have got to take it all back in here, and then not judge each other for the choices we make, because everybody's just doing the best they can, right? And then not judge ourselves too for the choices. Right? Because we're just learning. It's
all just part of the journey.
Yes, and we're all just learning how our own inner guidance communicates with us, right? So that we can trust it more.
Yeah, I very much, when you said that, I was just like picturing you, like everybody's just walking their own path, and it's like their own maze almost. And some of them just like go off over here and they get lost until they finally understand what they're supposed to learn from that step and that tangent that they took. And then they kind of go back to the middle, and then they'll take another tangent. It's not, everybody has their own tangents that they have to take in life,
Absolutely.
We've all been there. Like, kind of once you start doing this healing, you can look at the people around you and see like, oh yeah, I've been there. And then you lose the judgment, because you're like, I get it. Like, I've been there,
Absolutely. Okay. So let's just muscle test. It's safe and appropriate for me to be the surrogate for Heather. It's safe and appropriate for Heather to have me be the surrogate. All right. My name is Heather. The most appropriate goal for Heather to work on today is trusting herself enough to navigate relationships, and that's strong. And then, and also I'll just say for everybody listening, because you already know this, Heather, when we determine our goal for the session, it will encompass everything that we've kind of been talking about and setting intentions for, of like what you want and what, so you don't have to like fret over your goal too much either. If you can get a strong, muscle response to, all that stuff we just been talking about the last 5 minutes. Like sometimes that's how we have to describe, like this thing we want to work on today, and it's okay to just kind of trust that your higher self, knows that, like, kind of, are we going in the right direction? And we got a yes on that. So, it is going to encompass, all of that with the boundaries. And then when is it safe to open up?
Yeah.
In all those different ways, right? I'm going to take a sip of water. All right. So the most appropriate statements for Heather to balance in order to accomplish her goal for today is in categories 1 through 20, and that's strong. 1 through 10, 11 through 20. So 11 through 15, 16 through 20, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. Category 18. Okay. So I'll look at it on my computer because I don't have one.
And actually, for anyone else who's been doing the practices, it just came to me that, I have these other statements that I need to clear. And then obviously some stuff has been shifting on. There's a little still subconscious. If I didn't clear those things, like there would still be issues. There would still be something that's going to blow up about those things. The universe would remind me in some way. But obviously they're clear enough that it's allowing, my higher self is allowing me to move past them at this point to even go to the next step, because it just occurred to me that sometimes like you really have to clear something if it's a big thing before you can really even like move on and do other things.
Absolutely. Yes.
I'm following something that was actually showed to me. Like I saw this in several areas of my life. So I knew like, okay, this is something that we can look at, because there were several things that were being made apparent to me about this. So. Right.
And yeah, we spent some time talking about that before we press record. But what was I going to say about what you just said? It went out of my head. I don't know. It's all right. Okay. So about like, is it okay to move on to the next statement? So it's interesting how it happens. So sometimes the answer is no. So we might have gotten a muscle test that says, no, she's got to balance those other ones first, and then we'll move on to this thing.
Right.
And what happens though sometimes is when we're able to move on to the next thing without the other stuff done, is that people will forget to do the old ones.
Yeah.
And then what you said is true, that like it will come up for you, and it will oftentimes not be that pleasant, because it's like, we told you once, and like it's the next time it gets bigger, and then the next time it gets bigger, because if it's something that your higher self is like, this needs to happen,
Yeah. Then you're going to be reminded in a way that's going to kick your ass into doing it.
Sometimes that does happen. And I mean, and sometimes it just takes somebody, messaging me and saying like, I don't understand why this is kicking my ass, and then I'm like, did you finish those statements that, were those ones that we kind of skipped over and glossed over or whatever, and they're like, oh no, I forgot, yeah. And so you don't always notice it, the second time.
Yeah.
Although us saying it out loud now, as we become more aware of it, you can begin to catch it sooner and sooner. And so it doesn't have to blow up.
Yeah, that's true.
Okay, so category
it definitely doesn't ever have to.
Well, I know, right? So A Course in Miracles talks about that, how it doesn't have to be difficult. Like we do learn through adversity and difficulty, but it doesn't have to. And yeah, boy, how people like to argue with that. They were, like, well, actually, we can choose at the happy dream. So
that you haven't experienced.
We're just going to keep working toward the happy dream, right?
Yeah.
All right. So, category 18 is angel numbers.
Oh gosh, the angel numbers have been big for me.
Okay, so what's coming up for you? That's what I was going to ask before I started muscle testing.
I'm still getting lots of 1s, 2s, 3s. I'm getting lots of 3s and 4s. Those 1s, 2s, and 3s are still popping up. I'm still getting lots of 3s and 4s. Okay. And I had like 111 yesterday, and yeah.
So
all of that's been happening.
1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, or 3 and 4.
1, 2, 3, 3 and 4, and 1s. And it's not even just 1, 2, 3. It's sometimes is 1, 2, 3, but it's just 1s, 2s, and 3s everywhere in any mixed
3,
order.
2, 1, 2, 1, 3, 3. Yeah. Okay. Okay, so that might be the one we need. Let's look at that.
I have been seeing the mixed 1s, 2s, and 3s. And then also just like groups of 1s and like groups of like 3s and 4s for months.
Okay. So I'm just going to first muscle test those. And then if it's a different number, we'll see. Okay. So the most appropriate statement that Heather needs to balance next is in the angel number message for 1, 2, 3. For 1s, 2s, and 3s, that's strong. For 3s and 4s, for lots of 1s. Okay, so first we're going to do 1s, 2s, and 3s, which on the website is a separate. So there's like 1, 2, 3.
Yeah, we've done 1, 2, 3.
And there's 1, 2, 3, 4. There's information on that, which are similar. They overlap, but it adds the 4 and whatever. So she has I think she has ones, twos, and threes. Let me see. I know she has like ones and twos, twos and threes, threes and fours, four, like every combo of single, like pairs, I should say. Why can't I find, there it is.
Okay. Yeah, it makes sense that this is the one that's like coming up first for us to look at, because this in particular I've seen the most for months. It's been like 2 or 3 months.
Info we need to look at is ones and twos, twos and threes, ones and threes. Okay, so that's 3 separate.
Okay.
All right, so, all right, the first one we need to do, let's see, let me just write those down. So it's ones and threes, ones and twos, and then 2 and 3. Is that all the combos?
Yeah.
Yeah, there's 2 of each. Okay.